one of my videos from the other day, the one where I was at the library and I was looking at agents, it got a fair number of views, probably the most views I've ever gotten. And I'm not sure if it was the title, I'm not sure if it was the content. I don't know why that suddenly got a bunch of views. But one of my buddies had caught it, actually had seen the video, and had asked me, hey, so you're looking at agents now for your book. That's really cool. And we kind of went over basically, because they're not familiar with the writing process. So I kind of explained what it is, how an agent works and all that stuff, and kind of why you look for them. And they had asked me, wow, you started this book basically back in January and now you're already querying it. So they had said, what basically did that? I guess is what the question what they were asking was like kind of what motivated that. And I spoke before about the slump that I was in. I spoke before about how I was in like that sort of funk there, where I was, I basically hadn't written in, since the summer before. I was in this really bad headspace. I was in a bit of a dark period of my life, and with that, I basically had quit writing, and decided to get back into it. That's basically what had happened with the story. And so when he asked, what did it, I thought back to it, and what I tend to find that had done it, what had basically got me to this point was the consistency of the routine, right? Of showing up and writing every single day. That's what did it. But I think on a deeper level, though, what really caused it was taking bold action. A year ago, I was not writing. A year ago, I was not doing this. I had obviously written for years before that, but I had taken a long period away from writing. And what got me back into it was something bold. It needed to be something that was very drastic. In this case, it had to be jumping back in and writing every single day. That's what it had to be. Not missing a single day of writing. That's what was going to get me back to the keyboard, and that was what was going to keep me motivated. And I've got to be honest, I think that's the only way to break. To be frank, I think it's the only way to really break yourself out of a funk. Like if you were in like a very deep funk, if you were in a position where there's a project you want to work on, there's a project that you really, really want to do, that you stopped, that life's got in the way, that a multitude of things have happened. If you want to get back into it, you've got to be bold. You've got to do something very, very bold. And yeah, look, writing every day, maybe it's not, not for something that's feasible for everybody, but you got to do something. It might be making your very first day of writing, sitting down and writing for 8 hours straight. Just go do 8 hours straight. Something very, very drastic. That's the only way I found that ever really works. Now, there's a counterpoint to that, which is if you do something very drastic, you've got to be willing to keep the momentum going the day after and the day after that. And that's where it gets hard, because what happens is it's very easy to do something drastic on the first day. It's easier than you might think to do, to write every day and then just write for the very first day and say, I'm going to write every single day. The hard part comes, just as an example of writing every day, day 2, day 3, day 4, it gets more difficult to keep the chain going. At a certain point, probably around, like in my experience, like around like day 70 or so, it became kind of automatic. Now I don't even think about it. Now it's just become part of my personality. But the hard part is being consistent afterwards. In the case of, jumping in, writing 8 hours in a day, that's great. Now, the hard part is going tomorrow and just writing something. Because what's going to happen is you're going to get your dopamine hit from the first day of writing, and you're going to go, oh, I wrote so much, I'm going to take tomorrow off. Or you're going to wake up the next day and you're going to go, I'm going to take today off, skip a day, and then come back the next day. And what happens is one day off leads to 2, leads to 3, leads to 4. Maybe like day 5, you jump back in and do a little bit just to avoid breaking the chain altogether, and you end up back in a slump. That's the hardest part. The hardest part is coming back and doing it again, of going back the second day, the third day, the fourth day, of getting the consistency underneath your belt. That's the hardest part. It takes a lot of courage to be able to do it once. It takes a ton of courage and a ton of fortitude to be able to write something once, right? To get out of that sort of funk. If you're someone that has not written, just as an example, in like a year, it takes a lot of courage to go back and write that very first day. It does. It takes even more courage, though, and more willpower to write the second day and the third day when your brain's telling you, you know what, take a day off, treat yourself, you've done good, or you've done well. That's where it gets challenging. That is where the real challenge is being consistent with it. But there's no other way. I don't think you can ease your way back into out of a funk. I don't think so. I think it takes something dramatic, some sort of spark, like some real explosion, basically, to use a metaphor. It's a bit like trying to light a fire, right? Like, you've loaded the fireplace up with the kindling, right? That's your pent up motivation, right? Okay, good. You light that, but you need to light the match. And wading your way in, doing some small things does not light the match. It needs to be something bold, very, very bold in the beginning. It just has to. I'm at least in my experience, that's how I've always seen it. You have to do something very bold to get out of it initially, and then you just got to keep the momentum going after that. The mind is very, the mind, I say it all the time, the mind is very deceptive. If you wade your way in, if you slowly ease your way in, if you kind of dip your toe into the water, then wade your way into the pool, it doesn't work. With these projects, it's very, very easy to lose that momentum. You got to go in with a lot of fire. And the good thing is that it's not, you don't have to get it right. The good thing about it is that you don't have to get it right. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to start doing it. If you jump in and you started writing, if you haven't written in a year and you say, tomorrow I'm going to take the day off from work, I'm going to call it sick from work, and I'm going to sit down with me, I'm going to write for 8 hours instead. Those 8 hours, what you write, a lot of it's probably going to be crap. A ton of it is going to be crap. I guarantee you. That's okay. That is okay. You've got the spark at least. That will carry you over to the next day, and then you have to, in the beginning, in those first days, weeks, and months, have to be consistent about your writing, about sticking with it. And then from there, you're good. From there, basically, it'll become a habit. But you don't have to get it right. That's the important thing. And you see it in all areas of life. I've spoken before about the fact that I'm a personal trainer. Often the people that end up doing very well in the gym, that become the biggest guys in the gym, are the ones that just show up every day and go to the gym. They show up. They often have the worst training programs. They have the worst training mentality. They don't know what they're doing, and they spend 6 months, maybe even a year, just kind of messing around, trying to figure out what they're doing. Like, not realizing it, not willing to take the advice of anybody else. And then what happens is around like a year in, 6 months in, whatever it is, they go, oh, I should switch this up a little bit. And they go online, they find a better training program, one that actually works, one that actually makes sense. And they start practicing, and they start going down the rabbit hole of trying to figure out how to refine things. But they've spent 6 months getting used to it, that the habit of going to the gym is there. At that point, it's just simply tinkering. Same thing with writing. Getting to the keyboard every day is the most important thing. If you are trying to become a writer, trying to get better, being at the keyboard. And so you don't have to get it right away. What you write is not going to be good in the beginning. Even when you come back, even if you have years of experience writing, when you come back, it's probably not going to be great those first weeks and months probably. That is okay. The fact that you show up the keyboard is what matters, and eventually you will. And time forgives. Time forgives very, very well in these things. I think you sort of pick up the skill a lot faster it's certainly a lot faster than you lost it. But I think you'll pick it up much faster than you think, and from there you're back to where you were. But it takes boldness. It takes bold action to break out of that slump. And so that's going to be it for this video. If you tuned in today for an update on the novel, basically I just went through and made some corrections. What you're seeing on the screen right here is actually myself sending off. Basically, I'm drafting an email is what it is. A potential email to an agent is what I'm drafting, trying to get that done and refined. So you're seeing on the browser right now my email. Just basically I'm going through that and trying to refine it. Just, getting prepared so when I can, more or less copy and paste the information over, and then boom, we're sending the query off. So it's getting more serious now, this process. It's more, there's more on the line, it feels like. So but with that, so I'm going to leave this here. I will see you all tomorrow. Until then, enjoy.